Hello, this is Mark from CQ Simple. I would like to walk you through the CQ Simple Nimbus enabled router today. Talk to you about just basically the setup and how to get onto your system as fast as possible. So when you get your Nimbus configured router, they come with the default address 192.168.1.1. If that is not your local, typically I just plug it right into my computer. If you want to put on a switch, you can, but sometimes that interacts with another router you might have, or something else with a similar IP address. So I typically just plug it, I plug it into one of the yellow ports on the router, one of the LAN ports, and then I plug my Ethernet port for my computer directly into that yellow port on the router, and then power it up. If my computer is not at the 192.168 core, then you can go down here, right-click, Open Network Sharing, then click Change Adapter Setting, then find your Ethernet cable. Notice you'll see it is attached to our ASUS router here. Right click, go to Properties, and then Internet Protocol version 4, hit Properties, and then you want to put yourself on that IP address scheme, so 192.168.1.50, and you can put whatever you want in there. And subnet mask at 255.255.255.0. In this case, I'm fine. I don't necessarily need to change this. I was already there, but this, if you change it to this, it will place you on the same, subnet, same local scheme as the Nimbus configured router. Once you've done that, come back here and navigate to 192.168.1.1. Username is default admin, and the password is all lowercase with no spaces, CQ Simple. Okay. So here's our ASUS router. It's got two different versions of Tomato firmware flashed on it. It's also been basically VoIP readied for you. The first place you want to go is Basic Settings, and then click on Network. So you first want to start by connecting it to your WAN IP. So you're going to need to talk to your client about, what WAN IP am I going to be using? What's your WAN IP? Hopefully it's static. Drop down menu, do static. Type in the WAN IP. So let's say 76.35.26.124. What's the subnet mask from the ISP? Okay, so they're going to also provide that for you. And then what is going to be your WAN gateway? And that also is going to come from your ISP or even the IT people for the company you're working with. Right, so either IT people you're working with for the current company or their ISP. If you're getting your own static WAN, that's always a great way to go. And when you do get a static WAN separate from the customer's existing WAN IP, then they're going to give you the subnet mask and they're going to give you the gateway. So let's just say 76.35.26.123. Typically the gateway can be a little one lower than the IP address. In that case, you want to go down here to now your LAN. Right, so this is where it's hitting your local network. So you can see it's at 192.168.1.1. If you need to change this to suit your location, this is where you would change it. So let's just say you're going to a place that's 10.1.10. In this case, you just pick whatever you want. We'll say 10.1.10.2. What's the net mask of your local network? Pretty common to have the 255.255.255.0. Do you want this router to be the DHCP server? Do you want this router handing out IP addresses? If you don't, simply click the box and it will no longer be handing out IP addresses. You would do that if there was an existing router already on location and you don't also want to be handing out IP addresses along with their router. That can cause a lot of confusion. If you are the DHCP server, what kind of range do you want to be handing out with here? And you would change that obviously because that doesn't match up with your scope over here. So we'll come back here in 192.168.1.1. And then once you made your changes, hit OK. You need to put in your static DNS servers. In this case, I'll put in Google's. If you prefer different ones for your service providers, certainly put in the ones that you feel are going to work best in your area. Scroll down. And the last thing on this page is wireless. Do you want this router to be also emitting a wireless signal? If you do, click Enable Wireless. and then we would highly advise putting a password on here. So I would not disable security. It's up to you what type of security you would like to use on your wireless signal, but default that does come turned off. So I'm going to save this, and if you did change your local IP address at this point, I didn't end up changing it, I changed it back. The router will reboot itself, go away, and it'll actually redirect you to the right location. You might need to go back in and change the scheme of your computer again though, because now you're on a different local network scheme. At this point, it's best to go to port forwarding and basic. So these are the ports that are forwarded initially in the system. So we got 5060 forwarded to the address of the Nimbus. If you change the address of your Nimbus to match the local scheme, you'll need to come in here and put in the address of the Nimbus. So this is the default address of the Nimbus. That's why it's put in there initially that way. You also can lock down the source address. So if you only want to open this port to your SIP provider, you can type in the appia.com SIP trunk IP address, and that way only 5060 is open to Appia. 10,000 to 20,000 for audio, once again pointed at the Nimbus. These will all change if you change the address of your Nimbus. If your SIP trunk provider uses different audio ports, for example, I just ran into a company that uses 20,000 to 30,000. In that case, you would need to go in there and change this to 20,000 to 30,000. 58088 to port 80. The important one is 80 here. This is going to be your HTTP port to access your system remotely. If you want to change that, you can, as long as you know what it is. You'll be able to access the system. And then 56222, once again, that number can change. The important thing is port 22 being forwarded to the Nimbus. That allows us root level SSH access if we do need to get into the system and make changes at the root level. If ever you want to turn any of these off, but not necessarily delete them, you just click the checkbox and then hit OK. And now the programming is there, but that port will actually not be open. I'll turn that back on. So it's important, your internal address should be the address where your Nimbus is sitting, to make sure you're forwarding these ports to the Nimbus. Really at that point, the last step is, in this case, if you want to change the password. So it comes admin CQ simple. You certainly can leave it at that. If you do change it and forget, there's actually no specific way to get to that changed address, but if you do want to change it, it's under administration, admin access, and you can scroll down, put in a new password, retype your password, and then scroll to the bottom and save it. So the router is set up very simply. It's got option 66 already configured for you. You should also take a look at that under advanced settings, DHCP, DNS. So you've got option 66. This tells when the phone comes and gets its IP address to go look at the phone system for its files. If you're changing the IP of your Nimbus, you should come in here and change that as well to match the local area network IP address for your Nimbus, for your platform. So that's one more thing to take a look at. Once you're done, you can head back to status and overview, and if you've done everything right in terms of WAN IPs and WAN gateways, you should see yourself connected here to the network, and you should be off and running at that point. If you have any questions, certainly don't hesitate to reach out. Hopefully this video can help you set up your Nimbus Configured Router a little bit easier. Have a good day.